Hello and welcome into Reality Check. What is going on? I am your host, Matt O'Leary, joined as always by my co-host, Jeremy, aka Jets Chaos. Jeremy, how is it going today, sir?
It's going well. Here we are in California, not sunny California today, stormy California, but we need the water, so no one's complaining.
There you go. Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, it's been rainy here, and I think we're going to get more snow, which I'm not looking forward to here. I'm kind of over it. I'm ready for the spring to come, but it is a fun time of year in the NFL world. The NFL Combine's next week, so I'm sure when we're doing this a week from now, there'll be some rumors that we could get into. There's going to be a lot of draft conversation, and that's kind of where we're going to go today. So, there's shocking. We can't get on the same page as a fan base, Jeremy, on what we would like to see the team do in the draft. It's pretty common, but the Jets have the second pick, and I would say the consensus is that they would take an edge player in either the names I've seen the most are Ruben Bain, Arvell Reese, and now David Bailey. But
I don't understand David Bailey, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah, right. We could do the whole thing. This could be the draft show. It's kind of the approach that they could take, positional value, the whole thing. But those are the names that get talked about the most. But what we wanted to talk about today was alternative options and really get into best player available. And I know how much you like Caleb Downs and you've been watching him recently. So I think that's a good jumping off point getting into this.
Yeah, I want to say I don't want to take Caleb Downs at 2 per se. I would love to have him be a Jet. I'd be perfectly the scenario, my dream scenario is that you'd be able to trade down 3 or 4 spots and get Caleb Downs and also pick up that extra second round pick, which would be just outrageous and incredible to me. And the only reason I'm willing to do that is I see people saying when you can get an edge, you can get a great edge. Well, when you can get an Ed Reed, you get an Ed Reed. They don't grow on trees either, right? So, and any of these guys, if you say, well, how are you comparing him to Ed Reed? His ceiling, yes. I'll say Caleb Downs, if he's at his ceiling from what we're looking at, he could be Troy P., Ed Reed. He could be one of those, big time safeties, just like, you have to believe, do you believe any of these edges are going to be a big time edge though? Every one of these players has a concern, right? I mean, because they might not, I don't know if Bain would be a top 5 pick in certain years. Right.
Or for what the Jets want to do also too, which is something we've talked about. I know you've been keen on if they're switching to a 3-4, Ruben Bain would be a defensive end. He wouldn't be a stand-up edge rusher. So is it worth taking that with the number 2 overall pick? And then Arvell Reese, as we know, is projection, right? Because he's played off-ball linebacker, but we think he's going to play edge at the next level.
Right. We think he's going to be. So you could have your concern. You can have your concern about any of these guys, right? I want to be right. Right. So you take Bain, like you said, you line them up in a 3-4. That's a waste. Their job is to absorb blocks. And I'm not saying that's all there is, and they can't be better than that. But you want to talk about position value. Position value is very low on a defensive end in a 3-4. And you know that, right? So Arvell Reese, the concern is, again, we're saying what he could be, what he should be, big gamble. Right? Caleb Downs, there's no concern. He's the best safety to come out since Kyle Hamilton. He's arguably the best safety to come out in 15 years. Some people use the word generational. He has the highest floor. Again, I don't want to use 2 on him because I want to read the board. And if there was a trade partner like Robert Saleh, who's sitting at 6, who loves edge, right, and might be willing to move up to make sure he gets the guy he loves, I like the idea of that because we have so many needs and holes on this team that, hey, we could take a shot at that. But I'm not screaming not to take one of these guys. If they go in at number 2 and take Arvell Reese, I'm completely happy. I don't understand David Bailey and the reason I don't understand him is he's like, he could be great at what he does, but he only has 1 year where he even played early downs. Like and it's known he needs to improve in early downs. Like you might be drafting a guy that's purely a pass rush specialist. We're living that with McDonald. We got double-digit sacks from him 2 years ago at McDonald. Did that feel like a guy you want at number 2 though? When he's not playing first and second down because he can't stop the run. And I'm not saying Bailey is not going to learn and develop and be a good run stopper and be a full play every down that edge. But what I'm saying is you're gambling that because he's not like, if you judge him by his ability, his run stopping ability, and how he is as a run defender, he's not even a first round pick, not even close. So there's a real distinct possibility that he's just a pass rush specialist.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And like here, I'll pull up. I have NFL Draft Buzz up, and we'll be looking at that throughout the show. Looking at edge players, they have Arvell Reese listed as a linebacker, so not here. But they have Reuben Bain as number 1, David Bailey as number 2. And if you look even just at like the weight differential, Bain's a bigger guy at 275, which is why we talked about him as a 3-4 defensive end and not a 3-4 outside linebacker. With Bailey at 250, that's more your prototypical like off the edge player in a 3-4. And I think you might be able to argue that he would be a better fit over Reuben Bain. Again, assuming they're making this switch in philosophy. But do you want to do that at 2 is the question. So let's talk through it like this. If for whatever reason there is no trade partner, is Arvell Reese your pick at 2 then at that point?
I'm very torn. I would personally, I would, I don't even know if I'm ready to make that declaration. I mean, maybe right now I'm leaning that way. Man, you can go Sonny Styles, you can go down. It's crazy they're all from the same team, which is just nuts to me. But you can make an argument for any of those guys, man. I mean, Sonny Styles, people say, again, everybody's so hooked on positional value. Are you going to be hooked on positional value when you think about, and again, I'm not saying we won't know that any of these guys are going to hit their ceiling, but you want to talk about an idea of what the right guy in any position could do. Baltimore Ravens in the early 2000s was built around Ray Lewis. He was a middle linebacker. Okay. The 85 Chicago Bears, one of the greatest defenses to ever take the field, was built around an inside linebacker, a middle linebacker, Singletary, right? So you can't tell me that at their ceiling, and I know it's a big reach. I'm not saying that Sonny Styles is going to be either of those 2 players. I'm just making the argument that if they hit, because none of these guys are guaranteed to hit their ceiling and be big-time players. But sure, the position value argument is really weak because when you could give examples for when you hit at that position, that teams do great things. Pittsburgh Steelers defense was built around a safety when they were winning Super Bowls. They had Ben Roethlisberger, obviously, on offense, and they had Troy on defense. And I'm not saying they didn't have other good players, but come on, he was the stud. He was the guy they showed the picture of when you were playing Pittsburgh, know? And it's the same thing, Ed Reed was like that. Ronnie Lott, one of the greatest defensive players to ever play. So any of these guys, it's more important to get it right than get the right position is the point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying that I'm ready to say I wouldn't take Arvell Reese, especially if we're going to play a 3-4. Because I think Arvell Reese, he has that backup thing. Even if he's not going to be a great edge player, it doesn't mean he's not going to be a great linebacker in a 3-4. Like you might not be the guy that you pass rush every play.
Right, which you also need too. Like in addition to the pass rusher, you also they need more at linebacker. So to me, that kind of feels like trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And who's to say they can't use him at inside linebacker or off ball linebacker in certain packages or on certain plays, right? So I think that's where I'm at right now with the number 2 pick. But I don't know if you could rule out Caleb Downs or even Sonny Styles. I mean, we haven't talked Sonny Styles yet, but I think that's pretty much almost every Jet fan's favorite player in this draft. And, in a perfect world, he would be there for you at 16. But as we know, this ain't a perfect world. And I think someone's going to take him in the top 10. Is that too early for him at 2? Where do you stand on the Sonny Styles part of the conversation?
again, it's hard. I know it's hard psychologically for people because this is what happens when you start the draft boards in December and you're looking at it and you see Sonny Styles as a guy you can get at 16, and then suddenly he's being talked about at 2, which is why what's the negative and the danger of looking at draft boards that early before they really start to kick in with the analysis and everything. Look, I mean, I don't know if it's the pick I would make. I would much prefer to trade down and make a pick like that. Like, to me, Sonny Styles and an extra second or third round pick makes more sense than just Sonny Styles. But at the same time, if he hits, no one's going to question you. No one's going to care. Only a fool would. And Sonny Styles ends up being an all-pro middle linebacker. That's like, then I mean, how do you argue that if he becomes this giant impact player? People are like looking for every excuse. I see it in the chat. Oh, that was a million years ago. Football hasn't changed. Football's football. That wasn't a million years ago. Troy P didn't play a million years ago. Like, what are we talking about here? I'm saying that you have to get the player right. We've seen stars be captains and leaders of teams from every position. It's about getting the pick right. It's like, I cannot gamble. If they love the edge and they want to take the edge, if they love him, fine. But you don't reach at number 2 when you have if you know and you believe that the safety we know is going to be an all-pro safety, the edge, we're going to take a risk because it's edge. Like, you don't do that. You have to hit. You have to get an impact player. So what I want them to do, it's not specific to which player I want them to take. I want to make sure that they take the right guy. Like, as far as hitting, not the position, the player. Just make sure whoever they take, we have to get value. Otherwise, I mean, look at our roster. Look how down. I mean, we're so bad. We cannot afford to get it wrong, is what I'm saying. So if I'm a GM, I'm going to look at the tapes. I'm going to talk to my team, and I'm going to factor in what is the lowest risk player as far as to assure ourselves a really, really strong impact player.
Well, you might end up talking yourself into Caleb Downs. That's what it sounds like. And I know, like you said, in a perfect world, it's a trade down scenario. And, as silly as it might be, taking Caleb Downs at 2 or versus 6, and picking up more assets, I think is going to change the perspective on it for some people. But it's a great line that you said. Someone said it on the Talking Jets stream last night. No one's going to care about positional value if you hit on that position. And that's, with the amount of needs that this team has, that's the most important thing for them to do at pick number 2, is to get the biggest impact guy.
Yeah, and everybody's so convinced that these edges are going to hit. Like, I mean, obviously, if we pick a guy, I want him to hit, but like, I'm not so convinced, man. I was there, meaning I was a Jet fan when we took Vernon Gholston, and I thought we had a guy that was going to get 18 sacks and dominate the league and be one of the best players. I was there, right? I'm watching the Giants with Thibodeau. Is Thibodeau worth the pick he was picked at? Would you want a guy? What if we took Bailey or something like that, or whoever it is you want, like, fill in the blank, and he turns out to be Thibodeau? Is that, I'm not saying Thibodeau's bad. Is he worth number 2 though?
He's not a game changer.
Right, but everyone thought he was during that draft. Some of the people here screaming take an edge probably thought he was the guy, but they're not going to sit there and say that and say, so who would you rather taken, Kyle Hamilton, or an edge that didn't work out? So my point is, you got to hit. You got to hit. I don't know that, and I will say, when I say Kyle Hamilton, I don't know that I'd be happy with that. Like, if we took Caleb Downs and he was Kyle Hamilton, I don't know if I make that deal. I'm more like Ed Reed, Ronnie Lott. Like, you'd have to, like,
he's got to be a Hall of Famer.
You have to believe he's going to be that. Well, at number 2, to take a safety, like I'm not saying totally ignore position. I'm saying you have to at least believe he has that ceiling. You have to believe that he might be able to be that. Like, if you think, if you don't really believe there's a chance, wow, this guy could be the next Ronnie Lott or the next Ed Reed, I don't know if you take him at number 2. If I knew he was going to be Kyle Hamilton, I probably wouldn't. I would take the chance with Arvell, same thing with Sonny Styles. If you really believe he's going to be freaking Ray Lewis type of player, I don't care. Like, you're going to complain about what position value? Like, what do you care? You just have to believe in the guy.
Let's go to the chat. Hennessy chimes in, says, I'm with Jeremy. You have to take the player with the highest upside. So that I don't know who that is in this draft. Like, is it
It's really
Caleb
tough.
Downs? Because I actually think that's two different things. I think what you were saying is you want to take the player, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you want to take the player with the highest floor, the one who you know is going to be the best right away. Because I think if you're saying highest upside, to me, I think Arvell Reese has the highest upside if he could be the Micah Parsons like player that he's projected as.
I think it's the balance of the two. Like you have
Okay.
to believe both. I think you have to believe both. Like if they were to take Caleb Downs, I would say the only way I would ever take Caleb Downs at number 2 is if, and I'm not there yet, but like if I came to believe that his floor is really high, like I believe he's very safe, he's going to be very good, but I have to also believe that his ceiling could be Ronnie Lott level. Like that his ceiling is that. I don't know he's going to hit his ceiling, but at least I have to believe. At number 2, I want to believe that the guy I take could be at that level. Now, I think you're right 100% with Arvell Reese. His floor is definitely lower because of his size, because it's all based on what we think he
Projection.
can do. It's all projection, but at the same time, man, at the same time, his ceiling is, I don't want to say names because it always makes people think you're a lunatic to say the names, but his ceiling is outrageously high. Like Arvell Reese could be, let's just say he could be a top 3 impact defensive player in the NFL. Like we
Yeah.
could have Myles Garrett, Matt Crosby, type of player on our team. That his ceiling, no question in my mind about that. The problem is he might have the lowest floor out of the guys we're talking about.
I think that's a fair take on it. Duncan Lloyd chimes in, says, I think the Jets need to hope someone falls in love with the guy and comes up. They will be linked with lots until then, and we will eat it all up. I think that's the hardest part, is because there isn't one obvious guy at the number 2 pick. Like, we opened the show talking about the names that we see the most are Bain, Arbel Reese, and David Bailey. But that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. And that's why we inserted Caleb Downs, and we inserted Sonny Styles into the conversation. But if someone does love an Arvell Reese or Ruben Bain, could you see a team moving up a couple spots? I love the connection that you made with Tennessee and Robert Saleh. I could see him loving a Ruben Bain type of player.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Like I actually used that on Exos talking to somebody, Krista. Like she was like, "Who would want to trade up?" And I said, "Well, there's a guy named Robert Saleh who's known for caring about edge above everything else in the world. Who, when you look at the 3 players and the edges that are up there, might think to himself, I absolutely have to have this guy, and I'm willing to give up a 3rd round or a 2nd round, whatever it's going to take to get him." And that's just like the reality of something that I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's something that's an example of something that could happen. I don't know if they just came here and they're new, like they didn't see the beginning of the show. Someone's asking about why I don't want Bailey. I don't want Bailey because Bailey might just be a pass rush specialist. And I'm not saying that he definitely will be only a pass rush specialist, but he literally in his college career until last year did not play on 1st and 2nd down because I just don't need another Bryce Huff. And maybe he's not that bad, but I don't need another McDonald. Even though he's better than McDonald, I don't need it. McDonald got 11, 12 sacks 2 years ago, but it didn't mean much to us as far as his stardom because he can only play certain downs. He can't stop the run. I want an edge that can stop the run. McDonald is fine as a guy who comes in pass rush situations as a pass rush specialist. The fact that first you have to worry, is Bailey even going to be a star at what he does? There's always that risk for every player. And then on top of that risk, you have to say, is he going to develop as a run stopping edge? Because if not, I'm just not interested.
No, I'm with you on that. And so what I think is interesting, and maybe another point that we can get into, is we were talking about Caleb Downs. But what also matters too is how much you like guys at positions at other points in the draft, right? So like I just want to pull up safeties here. So Caleb Downs, the player, is going to go in the top 10.
Yeah.
But the Jets also have 16. I don't know if there's a safety who would be there at 16. But in the second round, there's names like Dylan Thieneman and McNeil Warren. Those, I think, are the top two players that at 33 or 44. Do you like Downs enough to take him there rather than going, you know what, we're going to take edge rusher or whatever else at 2 and wait on safety? I get like, because I think that's something that has to factor into the equation is how much you like some of the other guys at that spot. Like, is the gap that big from Downs to these guys?
Well, this is one of the big reasons why I have trouble taking Downs at 2, because
Okay.
I love Emmanuel McNeil Warren, like based on his fit for this defense, his fit for Aaron Glenn. He's pretty big. He's got some good height. I don't know if he's going to end up measuring it 6'2" or 6'3". Some people have it mixed up. We'll see at the combines. I'm a big Oregon fan out here on the West Coast. I watch a lot of them. I love these guys. I really like AJ Halsey as well. So I think that this is a huge factor in why it's hard for me to say take Downs at 2, because how it just depends on their scouting of these guys. And if you can get a really solid player, like a really solid safety, if Emmanuel McNeil Warren is going to be a really good safety that forces some turnovers, that plays, that can get some interceptions for us, be a hard hitter, and then you put that with an edge that's successful, that's great. And it's much harder to get an edge in the second round. I acknowledge that completely. Which why I go back to the thing. You have to hit on the edge though.
Sure.
That's the fear. It's like every edge we're naming has some concern to them. Like Bain is not the right match, right, for a 3-4. Reese is all on potential or a lot on potential. And Bailey is not a good against the run. So that's the issue. That's the issue with those guys. But if they love them I just hope they're right. To me, if you're right about edge, then I don't care how good Downs is. Like if you draft Arvell Reese and he becomes phenomenal and he's a top 5 defensive player and Downs is a top 5, I will obviously you're never going to regret it, because you're happy that you got a top 5 player that also happens to be an edge, and you ended up getting a safety in the second round that is really good, and you wouldn't have been able to get a good edge in the second round more likely.
Yeah, so I think it's dependent on how you feel about the other safeties, like we were saying there. And for me, at the top of the second, I think there are starting caliber safeties there, and it's another factor too. And it's hard to talk about now in February, but a month from now we'll have an answer. Depends on what they do in free agency too, right? Like, maybe they go in, maybe they sign 2 guys at safety in free agency. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. What are safeties getting? $15 million a year. You could sign 2 safeties, and then we're not even having the Caleb Downs conversation at that point.
Absolutely. You bring in a couple of safeties, it's not even a conversation. It's the same thing with offensive guard. If we don't re-sign either AVT or Simpson, offensive guard is second round, no, do or die, in my opinion. Like, if we don't sign a real offensive guard and sign just some average guy, are we really going to start tearing down our offensive line now? We don't have to use a first round pick. We can talk about that later. But I'm definitely saying we need to do it in the second round. But if we bring those guys back, then obviously you're not going to use one of our top 4 picks on a guard. So who we sign in free agency is everything.
Yeah, it's a huge factor into it. I do have a take that I wanted to share, and it's not. I want to put a pin in that guard take because I want to come back to that. But we were talking about free agency and what they could do and how that impacts the draft. There is a position that I've seen mocked to the Jets early in the first 2 rounds, not at 2, but at 16 or in the second round, that I personally wouldn't want to go, and that's corner. And I don't think the Jets are like guaranteed completely set at the position at corner, right? Like, you have AZ Thomas, Brandon Stevens, and Jarvis Brownlee projected as your starters. I just think they've allocated enough resources there for at least to have that as the Band-Aid fix for the year. And if you have a year of AZ Thomas starting and it doesn't look great, then you go, okay, he's a depth player for us. We got to find a starter in free agency or the draft next year. Or, Stevens has another up and down season, then you're going, okay, after year 2, we're probably looking to move on from that contract and get out of it, right? But I just think you signed a guy to decent money in Stevens. You used the 3rd-round pick on AZ Thomas, and you traded for Jarvis Brownlee to be your slot player. I'm not saying, again, that the position is completely fixed, but I feel better about corner than I do about a lot of the other positions. So that's not really one that I'm all that interested in the 1st or 2nd round.
I'd be just so upset and angry if we took a quarterback at 16. It makes no sense to me. I thought that AZ Thomas, for a rookie, for the limited play that he had, made rookie mistakes, but also had great flashes and games and things that he did that look really good. I loved him as a prospect. I think we definitely have to play it out with AZ Thomas. That's what's great. The one good thing, if you're going to say one positive thing about being in a minimum 2-year rebuild where you're not going to compete, is that at least the one good thing is you get to play some things out, right? And look at some players and see what they are. So we have a year, because unless you're crazy and you actually believe we're contenders next year, you actually have a year to look at AZ Thomas and see what he is. And yeah, right, you're paying all this money for Steve. It makes no sense to me. We have 3 first-round picks in 27. If it turns out that cornerback is a problem, we could worry about it then. Then it becomes a consideration. But why would we do that now before we even play it out? And it's just not a position of weakness for this team compared to the other rooms. We have so many other needs, and we have such a bigger need at linebacker, at safety, at edge. Even, well, if we play a 3-4, I don't know if the defensive tackle thing. Well, we need a nose tackle. So there's a lot more needs that come above cornerback. So no, I'd be really pissed off.
Yeah, Jonathan Lee says it, talking free agency, but I've seen a lot of posts suggesting we are going after Tariq Woolen in free agency, obviously from the Seattle Seahawks. I don't get that one. So like, I wouldn't want, he's going to get decent money. I wouldn't want to spend decent money on the position. If you want to draft someone on day 3 or sign someone as depth as like your 4th corner, to me, I think that's different. But as you laid out, isn't this the year that you'd want to evaluate AZ Thomas and find out see what he is? And Brandon Stevens, with the money that he got paid, he's going to be a starter for you. And then you just traded for Brownlee, who looked good before he got hurt. So I want to see more from those guys. I don't want to sign Tariq Woolen, who, at least, yes, the positive with him is he intercepts passes and catches the football. But I don't think he's a number 1 corner. I don't think he's a top guy. So you'd just be signing another number 2.
Yeah, I just don't think that it's a necessary thing to go after right now. I'm not proclaiming that we have this great cornerback room or anything like that, but I just don't see it as, I think it's a lazy take for a lot of the people you see, that like the general NFL draft people, a lot of them have us taking like Woods and defensive tackle and cornerback, and you know exactly what that is. They saw us make that trade, and they assume that we have to replace. Oh, they traded Sauce. They need a cornerback, but they don't really know the team. Well, actually, we had just drafted AZ Thomas, who's looking like he has a lot of potential to be a good starting NFL cornerback. And actually, we invested a lot in this other Stevens, who actually played okay. And it's not as much of a need. And it's the same thing with defensive tackle. Oh, they traded Quinnen. They have to get a defensive tackle. Well, actually, this guy Phillips played okay. This guy Briggs played okay. We might switch to a 3-4, and really we just need a nose tackle that you can get in the 3rd or 4th round.
Right. Different. Very different. So I just wanted to pull that up because I thought it was an interesting conversation that there's been people who've been advocating a little bit for corner, but pulling out the pin on the guard conversation. So Daniel Jeremiah put out his 2nd mock draft, and with the 2nd pick that the Jets have, pick 16, he had them drafting Vega Ione from Penn State. Now, I think he is obviously a very good guard prospect. He's going to go in the 1st round. But how would you feel about the Jets going guard and offensive line in the 1st round for the 3rd year in a row?
I mean, it brings back the question of, really the only way to build an offensive line is first round picks. Every player on the off, and I have no problem with it in the second round. If we don't sign anybody, if Simpson doesn't come back, if AVT doesn't come back, let's say we let them both go, I have no problem in the second round. By the way, our right guard, who had a very good year that we like and we're very happy with, Joe Tippmann, was not a first round pick. He was a second round pick. And
Yep.
every year, our very own Dom C gives us a list of guards that you can get in the second, third, and fourth round, and lots of them pan out. So I'm just tired of the, like this. Why would you use 16 on a guard when if you look at the board, there's like this kid from Emmanuel is projected to go second round. We can get him easily at 33, maybe even at 45. And then I like this kid Basantis a lot. On this board, he's fifth. And I think it might be perfectly capable of stepping in and being a day one starter. Right. So I just don't get it. I don't get it. I think that if you do decide, okay, we don't sign either of those two guys, and we're going to go to the draft and we're going to pick Basantis or we're going to pick Parker or any of these guys in the second round, I do think you have to sign a veteran.
Sure.
Like you have to have a backup plan. What if they come into camp and they're not ready or they stink? Like that happens, right? Drafts bust. So you have to go out and get a veteran guard or someone reliable that you could trust if you kind of like what Josh Myers is at center. Like, if we might get a better center in the draft, or we might, but the point is, if we don't, we still have him. I think you're in the same situation. But to use the number 16 pick on a guard, I don't know that this kid from Penn State is that much better than the kid from Oregon or the kid from, from Tech. Yeah, I don't know if he's much better than those other prospects. It depends on which board you look at.
And it's just hard from a roster building perspective for me, right? Like, I'm obviously not complaining about Fashanu and Membu. Like, you found your tackles in the first round. That spoiler, that's kind of the route that you got to go. The good ones don't usually hit free agency. So fine. But you also had, and I know this is a few years ago in a different regime, but you went offensive line in the first round in 2021 with Elijah Vera Tucker. You went offensive line in the first round in 2020 with Mekhi Becton. So that's a lot of resources allocated to just one thing. And with the state of the roster, like, don't you want to spread the wealth a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing we did before that with defensive tackle. We took Green Bean's favorite thing that the Jets ever did. He loved it and was celebrating when the Jets in 5 seasons went 4 out of 5 seasons in a row to defensive tackles. I mean, it's just not how you build a football team. Right. It's just like, and you can't, I don't know that you can, like, how could you constantly use all this resource for one room? Like if that's what it takes you to get an offensive line, to have to use all first round picks to get an offensive line, and that's the only way in your mind you could do it, that team's going to have problems. And I was telling you before, while he's not a superstar and people are going to pull out numbers and say he's not that good, Chicago Bears had a pretty good year. And their starting left tackle was Ozzie Trupillo, a guy you and me loved, right? Yep. I'm not saying I'm very happy with Membu. I'm not having any regrets about Membu. So this is not an anti-Membu statement. This is a statement that the Chicago Bears looks to have filled and have an okay average left tackle, good enough that they could still win games and use, and maybe he'll even get better because he was only a rookie, and they didn't have to use a first-round pick to get him.
No, yeah, that was a second rounder. And that's kind of the range for me at guard. I think you could find, a good player in the second round, like Jets Terrible saying here, Pregnon at 44, maybe. I'd be totally good with that. If you're not bringing back either AVT or John Simpson at that point, right? And like you said, you still probably add a veteran for $5 million who's depth for you at the interior offensive line.
Right. I mean, I think that I'd be surprised if we brought one of those guys back. If Simpson was brought back on a 2-3 year deal, I'd be surprised if we went that high in a guard. I think at that point, that's day 3. Day 3 is just best players, get guys in the room, develop, and they'll be guards. There always are. Like, 4th round, 5th round, there are guards that will eventually be NFL starters. And that's what that part of the draft is all about. It's trying to find, maybe you develop a guy and he's your next guy up.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. And then even like a little bit further down is Keelan Rutledge from Georgia Tech. That's a guy that I like. Probably not in the second round, but that's one of those developmental guys. I've talked a lot about Logan Jones, the center, right? Like you have
I love him.
him. I like him a lot. He's one of my favorite guys. And, it's probably a day 3 pick, like a 4th round guy, but you have Josh Myers for another year. And then, you
Perfect.
have a player like Logan Jones sitting behind that could take over a year from now.
It's perfect. It's a perfect thing. And you get to see what he's like. And if he doesn't look like, if it's not panning out, you keep it, you could again draft a center and keep Myers another year, right? As your veteran safety net, because at least you know what you're getting. But I love Logan also, especially as a 4th round pick. That'd be great.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like I saw that from Daniel Jeremiah, and obviously, like he's a well-respected guy and usually pretty plugged in around the league. So when I saw that, I was wondering, like, is this something that like we need to be considering and talking about that more as an option for the Jets at pick 16? But I'm glad it seems like we're on the same page with it. It's not really the approach that we would take, even if you don't bring back one of AVT or John Simpson in that spot.
My biggest fear is that if they do it, it's because Aaron Glenn starts in the secondary. I would be really, really, really worried. Because that's the problem when people say, what's the big deal if you give a coach an extra year? Well, if we end up taking a cornerback at 16, that you can get rid of the coach, but you can't replace the decisions they made. So that would be my concern. I don't know what we're going to do with 16. The more I look at it with Sonny Styles and Lemon and these guys moving up and probably not going to be there, 16 to me is really becoming a trade down pick to me. And people will trade up for that one. When people say, well, why wouldn't anyone else trade up? Because other teams need cornerbacks. That's
Yes.
why. Other teams will want that 16 pick, for an offensive tackle or a cornerback. They're just not the things we need. Every time I do those mock drafts, it's just not there. But man, if we go back to 24, we could still get CJ Allen at linebacker if we didn't make that pick already. Like
Sure.
if we went edge, right? And it's just, and then pick up some extra draft capital, 2nd, 3rd round, whatever, another pick in the top 60. Man, it's a beautiful thing.
It is. And I'm definitely open to that. And I think they need to be as well. If you ask me though, of the 4 pick, they have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. The pick that I think they will get the most calls on isn't 2 or 16. I think it would be 33 because it's always at the start of the 2nd round. Every year there's a guy where it's like, wow, I can't believe this player didn't go in round 1. And here they are sitting at the top of the 2nd round. And it all depends on what these teams' boards are, but I don't know. Let's say a team 6 picks down is going, oh my God, I can't believe, this guy is sitting here. We got to go up and get him. And then you slide back the 6 spots and then you get a 3rd round pick. And hey, we have a 3rd round pick now. That's great.
I love it. I love that we have that pick. It's such a great pick to have because there's no consensus at all on the top 32 players in the draft. Right.
Oh.
Everybody, if we all wrote our top 32, if we all did a full mock round 1 draft, we'd all be 5, maybe even 4, 5, 6 players off on guys that don't make the top 32 on our boards or whatever. Right. So that what that tells you is there's definitely 1st round quality players that we're going to have an entire night to go crazy talking about after Thursday night. When Thursday night's over, there's not one draft where we have ever not been sitting there salivating because of guys that are still that slipped, that we can't believe we're still there. And in the past, we had to be the 4th or 5th, 16 picking. So we had to sit there and wait.
Wait it out.
Oh my God, I hope that, are they still going to be there? And this year, man, we're going to have, it's just served to us on a plate. And I think people do give up the most draft capital outside of the 1st round for that pick. That you're right. That becomes such a juicy pick to other teams because they have that whole night to think about it, to really just get more and more emotionally obsessed with that player that they love, that they can't believe slips. And can we get the Jets to trade with us? And what is it going to take? And sometimes you get a team that'll overpay.
Yep. 100%. I wanted to pull this one up from Jonathan Lee, who says, "Hey guys, do we take a swing at tight end on day 3, or do we re-sign Woods or Smart at the tight end room, and the tight end room is set for 2026?" Honestly, I'm down with taking a tight end in the draft. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
we really saw really much of anything from either Woods or Smart. And, it was an interesting swing that they took. Smart as a pass catching guy. Jelani Woods kind of was the same approach there, but didn't show us a whole lot. In this league, it's funny. It's so cyclical, right? Like for so long, everyone was going with the 3 wide receivers. And now we have teams like the Rams, who are this high flying paced offense. Now they're running a lot of 3 tight end situations on offense. And, so I like Mason Taylor. I think Jeremy Ruckert coming back for depth is good, but I think you need another one. And there's players on day 3 that you could probably get in the 4th or 5th round that I think could come in and be a serviceable tight end 2 or 3 for you.
I will even see that and raise you one. I'll say
Okay.
that if we're able to trade down at all at any point in this draft a little bit and get ourselves an extra 3rd round pick or late 2nd round, early 3rd round pick, I will go as far as to say I'm perfectly happy if they took a tight end like Michael Trigg from Baylor. That's a player that I personally love. So I'm willing to go, if it's the right player in tight end, I'm willing to go that high, because I see teams that have 2 good tight ends. As much as I love and believe in Mason Taylor, and I believe still that he's going to develop into a very good tight end, that still doesn't deter me from saying, if I love another guy that I think could potentially be an incredible weapon for us, that we could still go out and grab him. So if you haven't watched film on Michael Trigg from Baylor, check him out. That's a receiving tight end. I don't know how he's going to be as a blocker. That's a receiving tight end that, like, my crush on him is compared to my Harold Fannin crush from last year.
Yeah.
Who I think did pretty good for the Browns when he got to play. He's actually started to look pretty good. I think he's better, this kid Trigg. I think he's better. He is. I don't know how teams are going to cover him. He's big, strong, super fast. Linebackers aren't going to be able to cover him. Safeties and corners are going to have to be the best safeties in the league. They're going to be able to keep up with this kid. He's a stud. So that's just one guy I like. So I'm perfect. I don't think I'd want them to go top 4 picks the way it sits right now with him.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to add on and get ourselves a later 2nd round or early 3rd round pick, I'd be perfectly comfortable with them taking a guy like that.
Yeah, my guy that I like on day 3 is Oscar Delp from Georgia. I think would be an intriguing piece for them. A little bit of like a seam threat, stretch the field a little bit at tight end. I think he would offer you something a little bit different than what the 2 guys that you have, with Jeremy as more of the blocker and Mason Taylor. I think of him as more underneath stuff. I don't really think of him as much of a seam threat, if you will.
Well, and there's also what's his name? Villari. Remember, I kept screaming at everybody, don't sleep on Villari.
Yeah.
He's like the most underrated tight end, I think, in this draft. Although, because people are saying that, he's going to end up crawling up the boards. He's an incredible route runner. He's really, really good. And he just played in a system that didn't utilize him much. So again, you look at the box score and you say, what's so good about him? But if you actually watch the film and watch the player and read what experts say about him and what the analysis on him is he's a really great route runner. He's a guy who could, finds the space really well. I don't know. It's like that to me is a day 3 pick, man. That, but a lot of guys like that get pushed up because the secret's out on them,
Now, different perspective, but interesting to hear what you think on it. We're saying AG needs guys now. A rookie tight end behind Mason Taylor does nothing for 2026. And he's kind of vouching for a veteran tight end.
Why do we need guys now?
I think that his argument, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but his argument is like they need to win games this year so that AG keeps his job, I guess.
Well, I guess from their perspective as a fan, I mean, from AG's perspective, that's the worst part about having a coach on a hot seat, because their needs don't match the team's needs. To me, we're not competing. I'm not saying tank. I am not saying tank. I am not saying don't win as many games as you can. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we're not winning the Super Bowl next year. What's our rush? I would agree with that. If you're one player away, one tight end away, and you think that's the missing, secret sauce for you winning a Super Bowl, I agree with you 100%. But who better or who's more in a position to develop a tight end than a team like ours? A 3-14 team that has no chance to make any kind of real mark the following year based on our roster needs. This is the perfect situation where you get to develop players because we're not there yet. So I'm not against, I mean, the last thing I want, I'm not saying I'm against any vets. It's okay to have some vets.
Sure.
On any team to help develop young players. But the last thing I care about right now are vets. I need a guy who could come in and play right away. Why? I don't even have a quarterback. I need a veteran tight end. I don't even have a quarterback. I mean, I know we'll have one, but we don't even know who that's going to be. And it's certainly not going to be the final answer, most likely.
No, probably not.
Right? So what are we talking about? What are we talking about? I mean, when you have a team that's on the cusp, like the Chargers need to have a vet tight end. They can't take a chance to develop a rookie. Why? Because the Chargers might actually contend and compete for a Super Bowl next year. We're not the Chargers. Some people might not agree with that. So fill in a different team.
Yeah, but the bigger names, I was just pulled up tight ends and free agent. I could switch the tab. But like Kyle Pitts, Travis Kelce, David Njoku, Isaiah Likely. You see the Jets taking a swing on a guy that big?
I'm not super against it. I just think it's going to cost too much money for what they're willing to do. I just don't think they're going to be willing to put the resources into it based on the resources they just put out by drafting Mason Taylor, right? Like, and where we are in our rebuild, I just don't know if they would do that. Like, I'm not gonna, if they get him at a good price, I love Isaiah Likely. And I think that he, to me, has the biggest ceiling of more unknown potential than any of these players on here because he was playing behind Andrews. And I don't know that Isaiah Likely as a starting tight end one is not going to be, a top 8 tight end in the league as a receiver. So if they were going to do it, Likely is the guy I would want them to go for.
Okay. I kind of like this next crop of guys for a tight end too, instead of spending as much. And I think Likely would get more than $8 million, by the way. Not a ton, but a little bit more. But like Otten, Goddard, Higbee in that range for a more proven tight end too, I could see that. But I think they'd be more willing to go in the draft for that position. I think they're going to spend their money on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. And I understand the argument of he's going crazy. We need to win. Yes, but you need defense to win too. I mean, it's not like I'm sitting there saying if we had a great roster, then I'm wrong. I agree with you. If we had a great defense, if we had a really filled roster, then you're 100% right. What are you talking about, Jeremy? Why would you get a rookie? Get a veteran tight end. That's the room that needs help. The problem is you're saying we need wins now. Yes, but the problem is we have no safety. The problem is our linebacker room is terrible. We need an edge. We need a nose tackle. We're going to play a 3-4. We need a nose tackle.
Left guard.
So yeah, we need a left guard. So I mean, the list is so long. Why are you obsessing over tight end is the one thing you have to fill now? Why? Why is tight end the position that has to be filled now? I'm not against it. I'm just saying, why would that be the priority? It doesn't make sense to me. It would make sense to me if that was the position we really needed to fill to win. But right now, did Brock Bowers help the Raiders win?
No.
Right? It's like, right. Like we need a lot of things. And it doesn't mean, and that's not an argument that you don't want to have Bowers on your team. It's just an argument that we need a lot of things. We're not going to magically win if we get a great tight end in here. You sign Likely to a 3-4 year deal. That's really a good team friendly deal. I'm not against it because the future, right? Okay, anything we could check, any box we can check off long term for the next 3 or 4 years for this team. You're not going to see me crying or complaining about it, but I'm also not going to sit there and scream I need a tight end when I don't have any safeties. I need a linebacker, maybe 2. I need an edge and I need a nose tackle.
Yep. Nope, I'm with you. And Ozzie
a left guard.
And a left guard. And did you say a wide receiver too? I don't know if
I
you
didn't
said
even
wide
say
receiver.
wide receiver 2 yet, but I'm willing to, again, because like that's the advantage of the one good thing about sucking is we can actually afford, and I'm not against, I love Makai Lemon, and I would do cartwheels and jumping jacks if we found a way to get Lemon on this team. But I am also not crazy against letting AD Mitchell have a full year tryout as our WR2. And I'm not saying that because that's what I want. I'm saying that because we have a ton of holes to fill and we can't fill them all.
Ozzy chimes in saying, "Why would we be taking a tight end when we need to rebuild the defense?" They do, and I don't. We weren't talking about taking a tight end in the first 2
We're
rounds.
talking about day 3.
They have 12 picks.
Yeah.
They have 12. So you could take 7 guys on defense and do that early. But, fourth, fifth round, you can take a tight end. They need another one. They need a lot. That's the issue, Jeremy, right?
We need
There's
a
so
lot,
many.
and I'm not against wanting a star tight end. I'm not. I don't want to say that I'm anti-tight end. I'm just trying to bring out the point that it's the language being used is, oh, we need to win, so a tight ends. And I'm saying, yeah, we need to win. I mean, we want to win really bad. It's not likely. No pun intended. But the reality is it's going to be really hard to win a lot of games. It's happened. It's happened. Miami did it. We watched that a while back. It's happened. But I'm saying it's just doesn't happen often. And when I say, even if I said you need to win, there's still a lot of positions also that we need to win. And we only have a limited amount of resources. So I just don't know why tight end jumps out over any other position.
Well, like the Bills were in a win now situation last year, and they took one of my favorite tight ends last year, Jackson Hawes, who was like a perfect tight end 3 for them. Right. And they had Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. They had their 1-2 punch, but they found use for a day 3 tight end on a win now team. So I think
we wanted him, and we wanted him. Every one of us wanted Jackson Hawes, right? We were drafting him in our mocks in the 5th, 6th round every draft.
That was one of my favorites. I was big on the double dip at tight end. They didn't, and I love Mason Taylor, big Mason Taylor fan. I think the different style of players, but the rookie tight ends could still have impact as depth players. What's his name? Oh my God, I'm blanking on it. Dustin Keller for the Jets. They were a win now team. They took a tight end earlier than we're talking about, obviously, but he was productive for them early in his career.
Tight end is a popular position for a win now team. That's what was so surprising about the Raiders.
Right.
Because tight end is like wide receiver. It's like edge. It's like edge you always need, but like sometimes there's like that final piece of the puzzle kind of thing that teams won't go high on. Like running back is the best example, right? Like a lot of teams when you're rebuilding and you're not good, you're not going to use your first round pick on a running back. But if you have a great roster and you're already full and solid and somehow you find yourself with the top pick, you can go running back. And it's like, that I think you taught me that phrase, luxury pick.
Yeah. And for teams whose rosters are in a better spot than the Jets, yeah, they would be able to take the tight end or the running back or these other key positions.
Right. And at the time, to be fair to all the people that wanted to take a tight end a couple of years ago, I'm not going to bring up the name because I already did. The fairness is we thought we were win now. So in their defense, we thought we were win now. So
and
it made
elite prospect too.
Right. If we thought we were ready to win now, everybody would be fine. Everybody would know what we were doing with 16. If we were win now with our current tight end room, we would take Sadiq from Oregon. We're done. But no one is saying to take Sadiq at 16. Why? Because we're not a win now team.
Yeah, there's a million things to do. It. We have time for a couple more questions. Pull up AB says the problem with Reese is that he had Styles next to him, McDonald on the inline and Caleb Downs behind him, not to mention a corner to reckon with also. It's easy to shine on a stacked team. Okay.
That's a concern about evidence. That's not a problem. Like that's a concern of I'm not convinced he's great because he had the great players around him, but that doesn't mean that he's not great.
Yeah, you could also make that case with David Bailey then, because that Texas, how many guys on that Texas Tech defense are going to get drafted in 2 months?
You can make that case about almost every quarterback that gets drafted.
Yeah,
Right?
that's it.
They didn't have an offensive line that gave them, I mean, a lot of time, and they didn't have good receivers to throw. Everybody loves the quarterback for Ohio State, right? He's going to be a great, well, yeah, well, I mean, he has some great receivers. He has a great offensive line. I mean, but to be fair, if we replace the word problem and say the concern, I agree 100%. That's why I have a lot of concern with different quarterbacks that come out. Like a lot of times I look at quarterbacks like Dante Moore. My concern with Dante Moore is he plays for Oregon, who gives every quarterback 5 seconds in the pocket and
Yep.
great receivers and a great system against weak Pac-10 defenses. So I have the same concern. But I, like you said, you could probably come up with a concern for almost every prospect in the draft.
Exactly. There is no perfect prospect. That's the issue. And you got to take the one, which I guess, they come full circle here. You got to take the best, or the one that you view has the best chance of working out.
Yeah. And I no longer, I want to make it very clear, do not proclaim myself to be any better as a prospector than anyone else. So I always defer to, and I will always qualify this now more than I ever have. I want the team just to do whatever they decide, to do it for the right reason, because they believe in the player. I just want them to be motivated to do the right thing and not give in to media pressure or give in to, hey, AG's got to save his job. I just want them to make decisions based on what's best for the Jets organization, with a nice balance of next year and then the years to follow it, right? So whatever the guy they take, I just hope they took him for the right reason. And when you say, give me an example of that. My example is, if they took Ty Simpson at 16, I'm okay with that if they truly believe in Ty Simpson. But if they're doing it because he's the quarterback that's there, then that's a disaster to me. Don't reach. It has to be because he's the player you truly believe in. If you're scouting and your scouts and everybody is in love with him and swears he's the next starting quarterback for this team, then I can't argue with that, because I'm not going to pretend to know more than those scouts and that personnel department. I'm not.
I got to follow up with this one, because AB's back and says, just to be clear, David Bailey was an every down defender at Texas Tech with 15 sacks and 81 pressure. So you're kind of talking out of your backside.
You're talking out of your backside, because I specifically said that he only played every down last year and not earlier in his career. So if you were actually listening and you could play back the video, you could look who's talking out of their backside, because I specifically said he has only 1 year where he played every down. And before that in his college career, he sat on early downs. That's exactly what I said. And the other thing I said is, while he improved and he was functional against the run, it is not a strength of his, and it's not a strength at all, and he's not great at it. And it's something that needs to be developed. And when you use a pick, your number 2 pick on a player, it's scary to say he needs to develop as a run-stopping edge. That's a scary thing. I'm not saying he's undraftable at 2. I'm saying that's my concern with him.
Yep. No, I know. And even you can make the case with Ruben Bain. Yeah, Messidor, who was also on his defensive line, is going to go in the first round. He had a corner on that defense who's going to be a top 60 pick or so. All these guys who come from good programs, they're going to have other good players on their team. I don't get the argument.
And all this is on film. He's just not that good against the run. He's not. He got better. So for him to be a full every play edge, he's going to need to continue to develop, and he might.
But there's Reese is 3 years younger, and Reese is 3 years younger than David Bailey. Too,
right. Right. And there's a lot of players who don't, though. That's the problem. There are edges who don't ever develop against the run. They were hoping Will McDonald would, and he's still a pass rush specialist. He never did. He doesn't play well against the run. So I'm just saying that's a risk. And you know what? David Bailey might be an all-pro. He might be the best player. He might end up having the best career in the draft. He might end up being a great run stopper, play every down. Not saying it won't happen, just pointing out a concern that it's something he has to develop in his game. And if you say it's not something he has to develop in his game, then you don't watch film.
Well, that's a good place to leave it. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out for another episode. We'll be back next week. It's Combine week next week. So hopefully we have some more rumors to talk about, things coming out, some news tidbits from the Combine, everyone out in Indy. Want to thank you guys for hanging. Please make sure to like and subscribe before you go. I'm Matt. He's Jeremy. And we'll catch you guys next time.